What's up, guys? Another episode of the Won't Be Quiet podcast. I know what you're probably thinking. You're looking, if you're watching, maybe you're listening, but if you're watching, you're like, where's Chandler? What in the world? It's just me today, but I promise I've got a good episode for you today. I really feel like it's going to bless some people. Um, yeah, we usually record on Mondays. Today is Tuesday. We had Memorial Day, and Chandler has some pastoral things going on today, and then he's got some father things going on today. So he wasn't able to make it for this week's recording, but I promise, I really do. I feel like this is going to bless someone. And so today, really, I'm just going to be sharing my story. We're going to have story time with Austin on this episode. I know a few people, especially my youth group, maybe a few of my close friends, close church family has heard my testimony, but today I really want to go more in depth and really make points out of certain spots in my life that might minister to the current situation you're in or give you hope for the future. And I really do just want to be vulnerable, be honest, and man, I'll tell you what, a testimony is what got me back on track with the Lord. I was at a revival service, and I'll share this later in my testimony. But testimonies are, man, they're just so powerful. And like I said, I was kind of wayward. I wasn't exactly where I needed to be, man. And I heard a man of God tell his testimony, and it changed my life forever. So if you're watching this, maybe you feel like you've drifted from the Lord. Maybe you just need some encouragement. Maybe you just need I don't know what it is, but I just pray this blesses you. I pray that something in my story would minister to you, that would give you hope. And so, yeah, with that being said, we'll hop right into it. When I was, honestly, as long as I can remember, I've been in church my whole life, pretty much. I was raised in church, went to all the VBS's, vacation Bible schools, Sunday morning, Sunday school, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And I knew all the things, I knew the stories. Anyways, I started when I moved to Auburn School District in about fifth grade. Yeah, fifth grade. And we started going to a church, and I was in their youth group. All was good. I loved it. Youth group was fun. Well, we had a youth group trip coming up. And the agenda was like service one night, service the next morning, service that night, service the next morning, service that night, and then Carowinds. And so I was invited to this church trip, and I didn't care about anything else but Carowinds. I was so excited to go to Carowinds. I was like, you know what, I can suck it up, get through the services to go to Carowinds. Free trip to Carowinds. What kid wouldn't want that, right? So we're going on this youth trip, and keep in mind, these services wasn't like no hour services. The agenda literally was like the evening services were from like 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And so anyways, I suffered through all of that. It sounds bad now saying, but in my mind back then, I was suffering through all the services so I could get to Carowinds. That was my whole motive. Well, night 1 went, night 2 went, and night 3 came around, and this preacher was preaching, man, and I already felt the Lord strong. The Lord had softened my heart through the previous 2 nights, so I was feeling the Lord so strong. And anyways, he was preaching, and he's, the typical thing for a church service is you do your altar call at the end of service. Like, that's just typical, that's just, at least for me being raised, I've never really seen an altar service just in the middle of service or even at the beginning. Maybe at a revival setting you have you're worshiping and people come up to the altar and then the Spirit breaks loose. But in a normal setting, your altar call is at the end of service. Well, this preacher had been preaching, and he stopped in the middle of his preaching, no lie. In the middle of his preaching, in the middle of his sermon, I've never seen him preach this before, he stopped and he said, I feel like the Lord's leading me to do an altar call right now. And I was like, well, man, this is weird, and the Lord was already speaking to me. And anyway, so he said this. This was the first thing he said that came out of his mouth. I feel like I need to do an altar call right now. He said, guys, I just want to tell you, we're not here to get girls' phone numbers. That's not what this camp is for. It was a conference, sorry. He was like, that's not what this conference is for. Well, little Austin sitting in the pews, I had gotten the girl's phone number like 2 days prior, and I had not told anyone about this. I was just a little middle schooler running around thinking I was cool, laughing. And so I'd gotten a girl's phone number, and it wasn't nothing serious, I was just trying to be cool, be funny, whatever. But anyways, he said that. I was like, man, that's weird that he like, did someone see me or tell him? Did this girl tell I was like, man, this is super weird. Anyways, so I was like, that's strange. Well, that convicted me a little bit. And then after that, he said, don't wait to the end of service. He said, the reason why I'm calling an altar call right now is because you don't want to wait to the end of service. And in my head, I was like, well, I'll just wait to the end of the service. That's okay. Like, there's going to be another one. And then after, I'm telling you guys, like, this was so divine. This was God. As soon as that thought came off of my mind, out of his lips came, and the reason you don't want to wait to the end of service, because God could come back before we get there. And so called me out on the phone number, called me out on not waiting to the end of service. And so by this time, my heart was beating pretty fast. And then I was like, and I was just fighting it. I knew the Lord was speaking to me, but I was fighting it. I'd probably never felt like this way in my life. So I really didn't know what was going on, the way I was feeling, the way the Lord was on me. But after he said that, I was like, all right, man, I had another excuse on deck. I always had the excuses. I was like, in my head, I was literally thinking, well, that's all right. Maybe I would go up there, but I ain't going up there alone. At this time, and I've told people, I used to be the kid that was super shy. Like, if I was with my mom or grandma or whatever, and we see someone we knew in Walmart or anywhere, I wouldn't say a word. I'd kind of just be off to the side, like behind them. And so that's the kid I was. So I was like, man, I'm not going up here alone. You think? I mean, this wasn't no small conference. There was bunch of youth groups here. I had to have been like 400 kids there. And I was like, man, I ain't going up to this altar alone. There ain't no way. As soon as that thought came off of my mind, out his lips came, and you don't have to come up here alone. Bring a friend with you. And I'll tell you what, I was like, oh my gosh. I had felt conviction. I had felt the Lord speaking to me. It was one of those services where it really does just feel like you, the preacher, and the Lord. Like, I was just zoned in. The Lord was speaking to me. My heart was beating, had butterflies, starting to get the sweats. Anyways, I went up there, and my cousin was at the conference with me, and he went up there with me. But I went up there, and my youth pastor at the time prayed with me. Man, I just felt so convicted. It was an encounter with the Lord. And that right there was so crucial into this whole testimony. I'm going to tell you, that kind of lays the foundation of my testimony, but that moment was so crucial for me, so important, and I still think about it to this day. The way I felt, man, that was my first true encounter with the Lord, and just feeling His mighty presence, feeling conviction, and man, it was awesome. Well, going stemming from that, about excuse me, about a year, 2 years after that moment. Man, I was on fire for the Lord. I would read my Bible plans on my phone. I was a good kid, man. I really was. I didn't like, man, I wasn't like drinking. I wasn't doing any of that. I wasn't like, man, I really was like, not trying to sound prideful, but I would consider myself a solid kid. Anyways, I was a solid kid. I was doing my Bible plans. I was, doing the things. And really, that lasted all throughout, probably towards the end of middle school. Well, I got into high school, getting older, starting to, hit puberty, all of that, hormone, all that stuff, and I started reading less, started praying less, got out of church a little bit, and that really started the downhill fall. And so I went throughout high school. And in high school, man, like I said again, I wasn't like drinking. I was a solid kid. I really was. But throughout high school, 9th, 10th, 11th goes by. Senior year comes by, 12th grade. And getting a relationship, man, and it lasted like a year and a couple months. But at the tail end of that relationship, when I got out of it, in my head, I was like, man, I wasted my senior year. All my friends were partying. They were doing this. They were doing that. And I get out of this relationship, and I'm like, man, it's my turn to have fun. So I'll never forget this moment, man. This started such a bad season of my life, the farthest from God I'd ever been. I'll never forget there was a party going on at someone's house, and I remember getting to this party. I hadn't drank a drop of alcohol in my life. And I get to this party, and I remember all my friends were there, man. I wanted to fit in. I was seeking identity. I was seeking to fit in. I was seeking to be cool in these people's eyes. And so, man, I remember getting there, and I was kind of timid about drinking because it really wasn't who I was, man. Like, I knew it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. But anyways, who knows? You guys know the longer you're around something, the more the peer pressure, the more the temptation. And so initially when I got there, man, I wasn't really, I was kind of timid about drinking. But the more people started chirping, the more people started encouraging. Next thing you know, one drink turns into two, two turns into three, three to four, four to five, five to six. Next thing you know, I'm smoking. And I'm not talking about cigarettes either. I know you guys can figure it out for yourself. But all of that because I went to this party because I wanted to live my life. I was seeking some sort of happiness. I was seeking some type of purpose and, just to be able to feel loved and be able to feel welcomed. And, I was so excited that I was invited to fit in, to be around this group of people. And so what that did was that night, that moment was so terrible for me because from that moment forward, I developed a love for getting drunk. And that night forward, man, that was my first night partying. But any night after that, there was ever a party, I was there. And this was like local parties. This was like, just people from high school throwing parties, whatever, But what happened was not even just friends parties, any party that I knew of that I could go to, I was there. So what happened was I ended up I wasn't going to Radford. I went to New River, but I knew some people at Radford University, and how many of you know that's one of like the top party schools, or it used to be. So, man, they would have parties all week. But it started really with me just going on like a Friday night, Saturday night, and I'm not talking like party, drink 2 or 3. I'm talking like partying. Like, I don't remember what happened the last night, man, throwing up everywhere, waking up with dry puke in my beard, waking up just smelling like alcohol with the worst hangover and headache, just terrible. But when you're around that group of people, that they say things like this: the best cure to a hangover is to just start drinking more. So wake up, start drinking, go to the next party. Anyways, so it started off as like a Friday, Saturday thing, man, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved my life at this moment. It was, man, I was around new people. I was laughing. I was making jokes, drinking, man. And so the Friday, Saturday party turned into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday parties. And I'd been around campus for so long and been at these parties for so long that I'd actually gotten good friends with like a lot of the fraternity guys at Radford. And I don't feel proud saying this at all. It's actually very embarrassing. But I'd gotten friends with a bunch of the fraternity guys, man, and like they were trying to get me to get in their fraternity and rush and do all this stuff. And I would lie to them and tell them that I was, so I would be able to get into the party, and I'd be like, man, I'm going to join you guys next year, blah, blah, blah. And they would let me into their party because they thought I was, whatever. But anyways, just at these parties, man, week after week after week, and eventually the drinking turned into smoking. And, man, I'm telling you what, high almost all day, every day. And, at this point, my life was just a whirlwind, man. At this point in my life, man, I was so far from the Lord. My heart was so hardened that I had no sensitivity to God at all. Like, I mean, zero at all. I never thought about God. I never prayed. I didn't even pray for my food. I was so far, man. I was so far. And I was so far, and at this point, after I got out of school, my grandma would always invite me to come to church with them on Sundays, and I could literally just say no and not feel guilty or shame about it at all, because I was just so far from the Lord. My heart was so hard. Man, I just didn't care. Like, I just didn't want to go to church. That was it. Probably because I was hungover. Probably because had just went to sleep at 4 a.m. Probably because I just wanted to sleep till 2 p.m., wake up and go party again. And, man, it's crazy too, because in all this party scene and this party and stuff, the Lord really had his hand on me, because like I said, I was partying in Rafford at RU. And when I first started partying, I'd crash at people's apartments, whatever, because I could it was within walking distance. But then tail end of my partying, once I got more familiar with alcohol, once I started drinking more, once my body started getting more used to it, I would drive I would leave the party right there on campus, walk to my car, get in my car. Keep in mind, I'm not talking about 2 or 3 beers. I'm talking, man, a lot of alcohol. And I would get in my car. I would drive from Rafford through the campus, through the town of Rafford, across the bridge, through Fairlawn, all the way through there, up through Blacksburg to where I was staying at this point in my life, man. And I would do that 3-4 times a week. Never once did I get pulled over. Never once did I, man, if I would have got pulled over, it would have been bad. Would have got a DUI. Never once did I get in a wreck, man. The Lord really was just with me. And now I understand why he's with me, because he had a great calling and purpose in my life. But the Lord is so gracious to do that, because, man, I wasn't serving him. I was far from him. I was living for Satan. I was living for the world. I was conformed to this world. I was seeking validation and friends and drinking and partying. And, man, just awful, awful spot in my life. But God still was with me, man. Like, how encouraging, how good is that? That even in the midst of the worst season of my life, God was still in the car with me, still had his hand upon me, because he knew what the future had in store for me. And so, anyways, partying season, smoking, man, vaping, cussing, man, I'd cuss like a sailor. Like every other sentence, probably every sentence was cussing, man, just angry. Man, we used to go to the racetrack and get drunk, all of it, man. Like, and that's the thing, like, it wasn't just parties I was drinking at, man. I would day drink. I would just drink to drink. I would just sit in my gaming room and drink while playing video games. Like, and I just love to drink, man. And honestly, that addictive personality, or whatever you want to call it, runs in my family. And so I was spiraling into that very quickly. But how many of you know when you're in that and you love it, you're so blind to what you're really doing. You know what I mean? So, like, to me, if someone tried to tell me I'm gonna get addicted, or I am addicted, or blah blah, man, I'd get so rebellious, and I didn't really want to hear it, because I was having fun what I was doing. Well, so between the drinking, the cussing, the vaping, the smoking, man, I'd really just built an identity. My reputation was just a party animal. Like, that's all I was known for. And, it was cool at first. I loved it. I loved being that person, but what would happen is I would get home from a party and I would lay my head down at night, and I still didn't have no true peace. I would lay my head down at night, drunk, wake up with a headache, hungover, and it got to a point I was like, man, am I really about to go do this again tonight? Like, how many of you guys know that temporary validation? There's a reason why, or temporary happiness and joy and peace, it's called temporary for a reason. And that's exactly what it was, man. It was fun while it lasted. But I got to a point where it wasn't fun anymore. It felt like that's what I had to do to prove who I was. It felt like I had to be that way. I had to party like that. I had to drink like that. I had to shotgun that beer even when I had already thrown up previous times that night, because that's who I was. And if I didn't do that, I wasn't living up to who I was. And so, man, it was just awful. But anyways, it got to a point where I'd lay my head down at night and I just didn't feel no peace, didn't feel no validation. And so that really started a decline in my party stage. Now, don't get me wrong. I was still drinking. I was still getting drunk. But I wasn't partying 5 days a week like I was. Because I wasn't feeling as much joy from it anymore, but much happiness. And so I started to slowly but surely slow down. You know, I was getting older in age, so I was kind of getting out of that, party stage. I really turned into more of just like I wouldn't even call it a social drinker, but I just wanted to chill at the house and drink. Like turn on NASCAR on Sunday, drink, go play video games, drink, but I didn't want to be in that party crowd. It just got to be too much. Just anyway, so but yeah, just slowly but surely it started to decline. And so I got to a point in September. I believe it was October. Yeah, it was October. I was going to McAdoo's. They have karaoke night at McAdoo's with some buddies, and we were just going down there. I drank that night at home, but we were just going down there. I wasn't like drunk or anything. I just drank a few. Because at this point, man, it took a lot for me because my body had gotten so used to drinking, man. Like, so I'd had a few, and we were going down to McAdoo's. We're supposed to be meeting a group of people, or there was a group of people down there, whatever. My buddy had some friends that were girls that were down there, that she had a bunch of friends. And so anyways, we get down there, and this is where the story gets good. We get down there at McAdoo's, and we walk in, and if you know Radford McAdoo's, you kind of walk in, and you can go to the right to like the bar side, or you can go to the left to the restaurant side. We walk through the left, and we go up the steps, and there's a group of girls sitting at this table, and like two guys, I believe, they were celebrating somebody's birthday. But I looked up, and I seen somebody that looked so familiar to me that I looked at her, and it felt like I'd known this person my whole life, but I'd never met her in my life. And it was McKenna, my wife now. But it was just the strangest thing ever. When I saw her, I was just like, hey, like in my head, I was like, that's McKenna. Like, obviously I thought she was super attractive, super pretty. I even told my buddy, I was like, dude, like, she's the real deal. But anyways, so that night I met McKenna. It was the first night I met McKenna. And, we that was before the karaoke started. We went over to the karaoke, and we were just talking a little bit. To be as like party animal as I was actually super laid back and chill. So I wasn't like the annoying person, like being annoying and try to joke all the time. I was just chill, sit back. And so anyways, me and McKenna were just talking a little bit, but not really too much. And this is crazy. They had left. Her and her friend had left to go somewhere or do something, I don't know. And nothing stemmed from it. Like, I thought McKenna was pretty. We talked a little bit, but nothing stemmed from it. And they left. Well, she'll probably deny it jokingly if you ask her about it, but she's told me they ended up coming back that night because she wanted to talk to me more. So they ended up leaving McAdoo's, coming back. She wanted to talk to me a little bit more. She had a crush on me is what it was. But y'all have to give her a hard time about that. Anyways, they come back. We're talking more, whatever. Well, my buddies, they were drinking. They wanted to stay longer. And like I said, I was in my decline at this point. I was getting sick of drinking. It really wasn't fulfilling me anymore. It felt kind of more like a chore. Like that's what I had to do. That's who I was. And so I was ready to go home, man, and get in the bed and go to sleep. And so I told McKenna and her friend had drove. And so I told McKenna, I was like, man, can y'all take me home? Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I didn't drive to McAdoo's. So they ran me up to my house at that point. I was living on campus at RU. She drove me up there. And later that night, man, I was like, man, I wish McKenna would text me right now. I couldn't be the one to text her first. Us guys, we're too prideful for that. I couldn't text her first. But man, she about 11 o'clock, probably 12 o'clock, she texted me. Well, at this point, Snapchat was a thing. And so she Snapchatted me, and it was just a picture of the ceiling. And I was like, I know what she's doing. She's not dumb. She's not just sending me a picture of the ceiling. She's trying to see, she's trying to test out the water here. And so she sent me that picture of the ceiling. And I was like, yeah, it's over. It was crazy. So anyways, we started texting day after day, hanging out, and we would hang out day after day after day. We're just getting super close with each other. And I'm not kidding you guys. I believe we got married on June 1st, but sometimes, with all the dates, it's kind of hard to forget. So she's probably going to jump on me for this. We got together on October 24th, I believe. or one of those days. It was late October, I believe. I'm pretty positive. But anyways, I'm not kidding you guys. 2 days before, man, not jump too far ahead. We had gotten close, man. Like, I really enjoyed spending time with her. She's super sweet, man. When I met her, her lock screen on her phone was a Bible verse and a cross, and that really just stood out to me. Even though I wasn't not really right with the Lord at all, that still stood out to me, man. It was like a green flag. That's what us Gen Zers, I guess we're Gen Z, that's what we say. It's a green flag. And so that was a green flag to me. I was like, man, because you got to think, the girls I was around, the party crew, man, just not good. Not a type of girl you would want to spend the rest of your life with. And so for McKenna to have that lock screen of a Bible verse and a cross, man, it really stood out to me. And as a green flag, got to know her. She was super sweet, man, sweet as could be, like just soft-spoken, sweet. Man, I loved it. Like green flags everywhere. And so anyways, time went on. I really liked her. I wanted to date her. Like I wanted to get in a relationship with her. And I kind of hinted at it to her, because you kind of got to test it out, because I didn't want to ask her out and then her say no and then me feel dumb, all that. So I kind of was testing it out, and she was kind of hinting around that she wanted me to meet her family first, obviously, which is good. That's a mature thing to do. And she wanted to meet my family. So we had met each other's family, all of that. In 2 days, I'll never forget, 2 days before I asked her out, I could literally, I wish I could pull it up quickly on my phone, but she was walking up the steps and I just recorded on my phone, and I just typed in there, I was like, I'm going to marry this girl one day, and I'm going to show this video at our wedding. Well, that was 2 days before I asked her out to be my girlfriend. Anyways, we took a evening picnic up to Blue Ridge Parkway, asked her out, super nervous. I actually didn't ask her out when I was supposed to. I was supposed to, we had a blanket, like a little picnic, watching the sunset, and I was too chicken, man. We got in the car to leave, and my heart was beating. I was like, why didn't I just do that, And I was like, well, I'm going to go home and regret it if I don't do it. So we were driving down, it's dark, and I was like, well, this is what I said to her. I never forget. I was like, since I've met your family and you've met mine, can we make things official now? And she was like, yeah, I looked at her, I was like, are we boyfriend and girlfriend right now? Like joking. We just had that connection. We could just joke like that, man. Just got super close, super quick. Man, and that's really where things begin to change as far as my relationship with God. I didn't know this, but the second day that we were going to hang out, I asked her if because she was still living in Floyd at this time. I was living in Radford. I texted her and I was like, hey, are you going to be in Radford tonight? I want to hang out, whatever. And she wasn't actually going to be in Radford that night. She had actually just got home to Floyd, but she came back she told me, yeah, I'll be in Radford, even though she wasn't going to be. And she came back to Radford, and I really don't know where I was going with that story. Blanked out. It'll come back to me. But anyways, we start. Oh yeah, I do. I remember that night she went to Floyd. She had went to a Bible study up in Floyd, which was super good. Like the Lord was working on her, and and I fully believe God brought us together for the greater calling and purpose He had on our lives. But anyways, that's where I was going. She was at a Bible study that night in Floyd, and asked her if she was going to be in Radford so we can hang out. Well, she wasn't going to be. She went to the Bible study, then came home, I believe, or came back to Radford so we can hang out. But anyways, that was good. She was going to a Bible study, and she was making effort to drive back to Radford to hang out. Like I said, all the green flags. Couldn't go wrong. I'm going to get a lot of brownie points for this podcast. Anyways, so when we got together, that was really the start of the Lord's, just hand and calling on our lives. We started going to church together on Sundays, whether it was her home church in Floyd or whether it was here at Compassion Church. Started going every Sunday, loved going together. Man, it was super, super important for our relationship. Man, and I just want to stop there and say, if you're looking to seek a relationship, man, I know you get yourself in situations where maybe you get in a relationship and none of you are close to the Lord, and one starts to grow and the other one doesn't. Man, if you're single right now, when you get into a relationship with someone, if you start that relationship on Christ, if you build that relationship around Christ from the start, from the jump, man, it makes such a difference. I'm so glad that I have a partner, McKenna, that we're not unequally yoked, man. We both love the Lord. But anyways, we're going to talk about that more later. That was so huge that we were able to get in church together and just grow together. We started growing together. How many of you know if you go to Compassion Church, Chandler don't sugarcoat anything, which is what all preachers should do, by the way. Preaching the full word of God, not just picking out what's good, not just picking out what's going to make the congregation feel good, feel comfortable. He preached sin, and he preached hell, and he preached, man, with conviction. And when you have a preacher that preaches with conviction, God will convict you. Anyway, so we started growing, man. And our church at this time didn't have a Wednesday night, but we eventually opened up a Wednesday night. So we were going Sunday morning, Wednesday. We didn't want to miss, man. We were really growing in the Lord. It was something we enjoyed doing together. So that being at church together was softening my heart, getting me back to my roots. And I just want to stop again and say, parents, if you have kids that are not serving the Lord right now, or maybe you feel like you're losing hope for them, I'm sure there was people, parents, grandmas in my life that thought the same thing about me, like, what in the world is Austin doing, man? He's going downhill. Because I had a seeds planted, because I had an encounter with the Lord in youth group when I was younger, I had something to come back to, and we all know the verse, train up a child in the way that they should go and they will not depart from it. That's so true, especially in my situation, because when we got into church, man, I began to feel this happiness and this peace and this joy that I felt after I'd had this encounter with God at youth group. And, these stories I knew in church growing up, they began to come back. And, but that's so important. Let me just stop and say, man, parents, just continue to teach your kids what's right and wrong. I know I'm not a parent. I'm just speaking from the kids' point of view. Man, just tell them the truth. Preach the gospel to them. Keep them in church if you can. Push them to go to church. Ultimately, they got to make their own decision. But, also, too, it is a fine balance. You want to encourage them, push them to be in church, be a spiritual father, mother to them. But also, at some point, man, you got to let them get in the pig pen. And that's what happened to me. After a little bit, I wasn't getting asked to go to church anymore when I was in my crazy stage. I had to get so far from God. I like what Tammy, a lady at our church, says, I had to get to rock bottom to find that Jesus was my rock at the bottom. And so, anyways, I'd gotten so far from the Lord, but when me and McKenna started going to church together, getting back in the presence of the Lord, getting back in fellowship with other believers, getting disciplined, just, man, it was so good for us. So we started going Sunday, Wednesday, growing together. And, man, any church service that there was, we were there, man. And I promise you guys, I'm not saying this boastfully at all. I'm just telling you what the Lord was doing in our life. And so if there was a revival service around here, we were there. We were going. We wanted to be there. It was awesome. Being in the presence of the Lord, I was feeling peace and joy like I had never felt in so long. I'm sure she was too. She would say the same thing. But there was a revival service we went to. It was actually held at her home church. And, man, I love this preacher. I'm going to shout him out, Paul Robertson. Super, man. If you're listening to this, man, I just love you. You have such a spot in my heart. You really do. But he was preaching that night, and I never heard a story. I knew that he had been in a car accident, but I never knew his story. And I'm going to share just briefly with you. I pray it blesses you. I was sitting in that pew, man, and the Spirit of the Lord was just moving in there. I could feel God's presence. I would just, as soon as I walked in, I just felt it, man. And the reason why I could feel it is because I had already been in church previously, getting back. My heart was beginning to soften. I'm sure my heart was like a rock, dude, but the Lord was starting to peel back those hardened layers of my heart being in church. So I got to this revival service, and it was a God. I didn't know that I had an appointment with the Lord, and that's so cool. We make appointments with doctors. We schedule the time based on what's fit for our timing. But how many of you know when God has an appointment for you, we don't schedule the time, he does. You know what I mean? And so God had an appointment there for me that night, but I didn't realize it yet, but I just felt the Lord's presence in there. Anyways, Paul started telling his story, his testimony a little bit. And it went a little bit something like this. He said, me and my wife had just been married for 1 week. They had been married 1 week, and they were driving. They were going somewhere. I don't know exactly how they wrecked. I don't know exactly, but they got in a bad car wreck, like bad. I think they had to get airlifted, if I'm not mistaken. It was bad. I'm pretty sure Paul was maybe in a coma for a few days, but his wife was for a lot of days, like a few weeks maybe. It wasn't good. Anyways, Paul had lost a bunch of weight, man, just because you can't eat, in a coma. His wife, just wasn't looking good. Well, anyways, Paul woke up from his coma. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. I apologize, Paul, if I am. But he was super in critical condition. Like, it wasn't good. Like, it just wasn't some piddly little wreck and you're in the hospital for a day. Like, it was bad. And so Paul woke up or, was getting back to his senses. And they came to Paul and the doctors, 8-year graduates, maybe more, came to Paul and they said, hey, we just want to let you know your wife's going to be nothing but a vegetable the rest of her life. They said you need to start looking for like nursing homes, whatever, start looking for them. Man, it's just so powerful. He said this. He said, I told the doctors I ain't taking their answer for an answer. I'm trusting in God. Man, and that right there spoke to me. But then he said he willed his chair. He was in a wheelchair, and he willed his chair into his wife's room. And she's still asleep, in a coma. But he said he willed his chair in there and just began to sing gospel songs and sing songs about the Lord to her and just singing the promises of the Lord to her. And man, I'll tell you what, God spoke to me in that moment. And this is what he told me. The Holy Spirit led me, and this is what I heard. It was something like this. It said, Austin, you are healthy. You have all your limbs. You have nothing wrong going on in your life. And you're not serving me yet. This guy whose wife is going to be nothing but a vegetable, he's in a wheelchair, is still singing thanks and praising God. And the Lord was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Man, the Lord started speaking to me. But anyways, I'm going to skip forward in the story, and then I'm going to tell you what I got from that night. By the power, by our mighty God, by our Lord that is our healer, our provider, our God that is bigger than any problem, any situation, any hurt, any pain, any car wreck, any coma. Our God is bigger and our God is able. Paul's wife is now not a vegetable. She can move, she can talk, she can eat, she can breathe, and she's on her praise and worship team at her church. Praise the Lord. That's how good the Lord is. And how awesome is it that Paul didn't take the doctor's answer. He took the Lord's answer. You know what the Lord's answer was? She was going to be healed in the name of Jesus. So praise the Lord for that. Just so awesome. But anyways, from that night, after he got done preaching, they called an altar call. And and keep in mind, this is a Pentecostal revival. It ain't no 5-minute altar call. Raise your hand if you're saved. Back down. Come. No, this is like you worship for an hour, the preaching's for an hour, and then the altar call is for about 3 hours. Not really, but it's long. But it's good. It's necessary. But anyways, altar call, altar service, music's going. Me and McKenna are sitting right there. The next thing I know, I see her walking up to the altar, and I'm like, oh, gosh. When she walked up there, you're talking about my heart beating. Dude, my heart was like, it was beating so hard. Sorry, I got the hiccups. My heart was pounding, man. She went up there, and she was getting prayed for. She was getting prayer. She was bawling her eyes out. And then I begin to feel bad. I'm like, man, what kind of boyfriend am I that my girlfriend is up there getting prayed for and bawling her eyes out? She's sensitive to the Lord. She's listening to the Lord, to lead her, voice to lead her up there. And here I am sitting back in my seat. And I just kept clenching the pew, man. And I just kept sitting there. My heart was beating. I felt that conviction to go up there. And, man, it was crazy. Paul, it was the end of the altar service. Paul was like, does anyone want to testify tonight? Does anyone got a testimony they want to share? I had never spoken in church ever. Not in this setting, not in a revival setting. Man, and I'm not kidding you. Like, I promise you, it was supernatural. It was God that got me up there. But it felt like I'd I was sitting in the pew. I shut my eyes, like I was blinking, and I opened it, and I was sharing my testimony. And I can feel the Lord even saying that, man. But next thing I know, man, I'm in a circle sharing my testimony. And, it wasn't obviously the testimony I have now about being in ministry and stuff, but it was about, the previous things I've told you guys, partying, all this and that, but meeting McKenna and going to church together and being at this revival. And I just laid my heart out, man, and said, the Lord's worked in my life. And I just looked at McKenna in the eyes. I said, man, I'm just so thankful you're in my life. God has brought us together. I said this in front of the whole sanctuary. And I just started crying, and then I walked over to McKenna and just put my head on her shoulder and hugged her, squeezed her so tight. And, man, it was crazy, but I'm just so glad I listened to the Lord in that moment. After the service, Paul was like, if you were going to propose, that would have been the time to do it. You ain't never going to beat that moment. And it would have been a good moment if I had a ring. But it was just crazy that, man, the Lord just took control. And let me just stop to say this, because I do want to preach and teach a little bit in this podcast. It's more than just about my story. I want you to be ministered to. We've got to quit being comfortable in our seats in church when you know the Lord is convicting you to walk to the altar, or to go get prayer, or to raise your hand for salvation, or to raise your hand for rededication. Man, we've got to get out of that. This world, this society, this culture we live in is it's all about convenience. It's all about being comfortable. It's all about just patting you on the back. It's okay. It's all about, we'll just do it next time, maybe next week. Can I tell you, and even watching this podcast right now, whatever day it is that you're watching this, do you know that this day is the only day you have? You don't have tomorrow yet. You don't have next week yet. You don't have next month yet. You have right now. And so when you're in a church service and you're in there, and what you got to come to the senses, you got to quit being spiritually blind. You got to realize that moment is the only moment you have. And so what I'm trying to say is, if you're in a service, man, and the Lord's been speaking to you, and good and well, if the Lord's convicting you, if you should be up at that altar getting prayer, or if you should be raising your hand and being vulnerable, not with the pastor, but with God. If you should be doing that. We've got to get out of the spot where this is what we do. And this is what it is, because I almost fell victim to it at that revival. But thank the Lord, I listened to God's voice and not the enemy's voice. This is what we do. We sit in a service, and altar call comes, and you should be up there, but this is what Satan says. Don't go up there. Don't go up there. Your person next to you is going to think weird of you. You're going to have to squeeze by the person next to you in the chair. You're going to have to walk all the way up. Maybe you're sitting in the back. You're going to have to walk all the way up to the front. People are going to stare at you. People are going to do this. Man, who cares? Is that not what church is for? Church isn't just to sit in the seat, man, and leave. Church is to go there and to get prayer and to get healing and to get deliverance and to be vulnerable. Because guess what? As you're in the presence of the Lord in the church service, whatever you're going through and whatever burdens you're carrying and whatever you know that you need to lay at the altar, can I tell you something? God already knows. God already knows. But He wants your humility. He wants you to be humble, to surrender it to Him. Right? Think about the Israelites. How many times over and over and over did they get themselves in an awful situation, being in slavery for 7 years, being oppressed, being in these bad situations? God knew the whole time what they were going through, but it wasn't until they cried out to God that God sent some help. And so maybe in your situation, you're like, man, where's God in my situation, man? I need help. I feel like I'm alone. I feel like God's forgot me. He's abandoned me. Man, how about you surrender those problems? God knows them. How about if you surrender them, watch what God would do in your life. Watch how God would begin to move in your situation. Watch how God would begin to move in your family, in that addiction, in that stronghold, whatever Satan has you wrapped in, blankets of sin and whatever, anxiety, depression, stress. I don't care what it is. But God is not looking for you to stay in the pew and be comfortable. And maybe you're saying, God can heal me in my chair. God can listen. Yeah, He sure can. But God also likes people that confess Him in front of other people. The Bible instructs us to confess each other's sin with one another so that we could pray and that we might be healed. I believe that's in James 5. Don't fact check me. It's in James, I know. But man, there's something so powerful about getting out of your seat. And this is what, man, I'm just going to share this. It's so powerful. When you're in your seat and you're listening to two voices, you're listening to God's voice, you're listening to the Holy Spirit tell you, hey, get up out of your seat and go and go up there and get prayer. You hear, if it was for me, Austin, you know this message is for you. You better get up there. Go get some prayer. This is for you. Walk up front, and you feel your heart beating and you feel the butterflies, and you know that you should be up there, but then you also hear Satan. And so in this moment, and I want to use this to minister to you, when you're in your next church service and you know the Lord is convicting you, you know that you're supposed to be up front, you have a choice to make. You can listen to either one or two voices. You can listen to the Lord's voice, or you can listen to Satan's voice. And the sad truth is that most Christians listen to Satan's voice. They do. They do. We sit in church and we let Satan win the day. We let Satan win the service because we let Satan's voice hold us back from acting out in obedience and in faith to what God would want you to do. I want to challenge you next service you're in, and I've made you aware of this. You know, God through me has made you aware of this. When you're in the next service you're in, and listen, going to the altar isn't just to get saved. We got to get out of that too. Oh, if I go up here, people are going to think I'm getting saved. They're going to think I'm going. Man, no. The altar is for broken people. It is for people that need encouragement. It's for people that just want to pray for other people, to go up there in front of others and surrender it all to God. Because there is power in doing that in front of other people. There truly is. But next service you're in, when you're in your seat and the preacher has preached a message that has struck you to the core, you have one or two options. And I pray you pick option A, which is to listen to the Lord's voice, or you can listen to Satan's voice. Next service you're in, pick God's voice, because you will see great and mighty things happen. I've seen someone I know personally that had, such a hard heart and was rebellious to church and all this and that. And we were doing a service, and Chandler called all the families to come up. And this particular individual did not want to come up because guess what? He struggled with anxiety, and he struggled with stepping out of his seat, stepping out in faith. He just struggled with it. But he ended up coming forward. Satan lost his grip on him the minute he stepped out of his seat and come forward, because Satan in that moment was like, anxiety, you can't do this, people are going to think this. And the minute he stepped out of his seat, Satan no longer had a grip. And because Satan no longer had a grip, and he walked down the aisle and he got up to the altar, he was now in the presence of the Lord and could feel the Lord like he had never felt before, because previously he was feeling Satan and the Lord. So now he was just all the Lord, all Jesus, all the Lord's presence. And we prayed, and I lifted my eyes, and I seen him crying, bawling his eyes out, something I'd never seen before. And that very morning, he accepted the Lord into his heart. And let me tell you something. It wasn't emotionalism, because he's been changed since that moment. He is a changed man. He is a changed man. All glory to God. But let me tell you something. What if he would have listened to Satan's voice in that moment and stayed in his chair because of that anxiety, and Satan telling him, oh, you're scared, you can't get out of your chair, all this and that. What would have happened? We don't know if he would still be alive to this day, because guess what? All we have is today. Something could have happened. He could have went on, he could have passed away, and he would have never had that moment to accept the Lord. But now instead, because he got out of his seat and he listened to Jesus' voice, he listened to the Spirit of the living one true God, he is saved, he is washed clean, and he has hope and he has purpose, and he's going to have a mansion in heaven one day. And not only peace in heaven, not only eternal peace, but guess what? Can I tell you guys something? We don't just live for the eternal. We can live for the now too. So many times we get wrapped up and we feel like, man, if we just get to heaven, we can get some peace. If we just get to heaven, everything will be better. You can have better here on this earth. God doesn't just promise peace in heaven. You can have peace on the earth. The fruits of the Spirit aren't just applicable to what we're going to have in heaven. That's right now. But anyways, back to my point. Next time you're in church, man, do the right thing and listen to the Lord's voice. And I promise you, you will see chains break off of your life. Anyways, let me get back on track here. Me and McKenna, Lord was working in our life. We went to that revival. That just sparked a wildfire in me. And I began to grow. I began to, it really wasn't like I was going up to that altar to to pray for anything in particular in my life, but just being in front of all those people and just saying what the Lord had done for me, that supernaturally started shedding stuff off of my life. The Lord started helping me. Man, the cussing was pretty much instantly. Like, that was something God just took out of my mouth instantly. Supernatural deliverance. I didn't struggle with it. I quit vaping slowly but surely. I quit smoking. No more weed. And we get to the alcohol. That was my biggest thing. It wasn't overnight. But listen, it was getting removed out of my life slowly but surely. 6 beers would turn into 4, 4 to 2, 2 to 1. And I got to the point, man, what's the point of this? What's the point of this? And it was great, for that. And here's the thing, too. I didn't just have alcohol removed from my life when I became a minister or became a youth pastor. I did it before. And this is what the point from this is so many people struggle with alcohol and they get into the point, well, is this a sin? Is this not a sin? And we Google, how far can I go before Jesus drank wine, all this and that. Man, when you get into a spot where you're worried about, and this goes more for just alcohol, but you get in a spot where you're like, is it a sin? Is it not a sin? That's no longer a relationship. That's religion. Because you're looking at the do's and the don'ts, the cans and the can'ts. What can I do? How far can I go without sinning? And this is about alcohol, but other stuff too. I just felt led to say it. Not everything's about what you can or can't do, but everything's about your witness being impactful and your witness not being impactful. And so we got to live a life that is glorifying Jesus, that would bring a better witness to our life. And so I just want to throw that out there. Not everything's about, is it a sin or is it not a sin? Live your life that would help your impact and your witness be greater on this earth. Because ultimately, guess what? Our purpose on this earth is to bring people to Jesus, to glorify Jesus, to be a witness. To be a witness. Matthew 28, Great Commission. Go and make disciples. Be witnesses. Live your life, man, that your witness would have some impact. Because that is your calling on this earth, is to be a witness. We have too many Christians that look like the crowd. And when you look like the crowd, you can't help the crowd. You've got to be set apart to help the crowd. You got to be a city on a hill to help the crowd. If you look like them, if you smell like them, if you act like them, if you talk like them, you're not set apart. You're a part of the crowd. And we know the Bible says, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world. And so we have a lot of believers, a lot of Christians who want to have a little taste of Jesus on Sunday or post a little Bible verse, but then they're at the bar that night and they're part of the crowd. And you can't lead someone to the Lord like that, and you can't be a witness to someone for like that, man. If I get around someone now who claims to be a Christian and they're cussing up a storm, I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, man, if I wasn't a believer and you tried to lead me to the Lord, I would not take you seriously because you're not showing any sort of fruit. You're not, it's crazy how even someone who drinks or smokes or cusses or whatever that is, isn't it crazy how even though if they're doing that and you do that too, but you claim to be a Christian, you try to lead them to the Lord, they'll use that against you. They're like, man, how are you going to lead me to the Lord when you're drinking like me, you're smoking, so there it is right there. People take notice, and we got to do everything we can to be a witness, whether that's anything in life. Just want to point that out there. Not everything's can and can'ts, but everything is greater witness, no witness. Live your life that you would strive to be the ultimate witness you can for Jesus, because there is treasures in heaven for that. Anyways, I keep getting off track. All right, let's get back on track here. The Lord was working in our lives. The Lord removed alcohol out of my life. We just started living for the Lord, being in church. I started getting the men's group. Man, that was so huge for me. And I got in the men's group. I learned. Those older guys just poured in so much wisdom into me. And so the Lord was working, man. He just really was. It was March. Well, let me back up. In February of 24, Chandler reached out to me and he was like, man, I've been praying for a youth pastor. Our church had been without one for a little bit. And he was like, I want you to pray about it. I feel like the Lord might be leading me to have you as our youth pastor. Well, I didn't really, that was really crazy to me when he said that, because in my head, this is what Satan did. The drinking, the drugs, who you were. But how many of you know when you're washed in the blood, Jesus takes all that and throws it in the trash? But anyways, I didn't really I didn't really think about it too much, man. Honestly, like I prayed, but it was hard for me to believe that this was real life. Really, it was. And so a month went by. I didn't get back to Chandler on it or anything. And it was March 13th. March 13th was the day I got called into ministry. And Chandler called me, man, and we just had a long conversation. He said, Austin, seriously, he was like, I want you to for real pray about it, but I feel like the Lord is telling me you're going to be our next youth pastor. Well, keep in mind at this moment, I wasn't what you would consider properly equipped or qualified to be in this role. Not in a bad way, but how many of you guys know we don't qualify ourselves? God does. We don't call ourselves, God does. And God knew the bigger picture. God knew what he had in store for me. But I did. I got called into ministry, and I wasn't living in sin or anything like that. What I'm trying to say is I didn't have all the Bible knowledge, Genesis to Revelation, all the stories, all the principles down yet. I just didn't. I had to learn. But through being called into ministry, it helped me learn, because I was put in a position where I needed to learn. I had a younger generation under me that they're looking up to me. And so I began to just learn. And, man, we've been in ministry for a year now. This past March made a year. It's been a great year. Man, and I've grown so much in the Lord. I'm recording a podcast right now about the Lord. Like, that's crazy to me. I've gotten godly friendships. Man, leading the youth. I've gotten opportunities to preach in the adult service, and I'm growing in that. And ministry, serving the Lord is my passion. It's my passion. There is nothing better on this earth. There is nothing more fulfilling. There is nothing more that makes me happy or brings joy or brings peace. And there's days where it's stressful. There's days where you're busy and you don't get home till late, but that's just part of it. Our whole world is about, or our whole walk with the Lord is about sacrifice. He made the ultimate sacrifice for us, and so who are we to not make sacrifices for him on a daily basis? But it's been awesome, man. I love it. Me and McKenna have grown so much together. But yeah, that's really my story. God can turn beauty from ashes. And maybe you're watching this and you just don't know what the Lord has in store for you. You don't know when you feel empty. Man, are you serving God? For real, are you serving God? Not serving two masters, not serving the Lord just a little bit and serving the world just a little bit. But are you truly serving the Lord? Because I'll tell you what, when you surrender it all and you let God, not just kind of trust and know. When you let God do what he can do, he'll do it. You go up to an altar and you surrender to God and you live out daily for God. And get in his word, man. Get in prayer. Worship. Worship isn't just something we do on Sundays, man. If more Christians would have church outside of church, we would grow so much. We would read our Bible. We would pray. We would worship. Be in fellowship with others. We can do that on a daily basis and grow in the Lord. But yeah, man, that's really all I have. Thankful that I was able to share this. Man, the Lord has delivered me from so much. He has set me free from so much. I have so much peace and joy and happiness in my heart. Nothing better on this earth. And man, yeah, that's really all I got. I hope this blessed you. Serve the Lord with your whole heart, not half-hearted, not Sunday-hearted. Man, every day serve the Lord. He's got so much in store for you. He's got so many big plans for you. And maybe big plans you would never expect, like me. But when you surrender all to the Lord and let him get in the driver's seat and you hop in the passenger seat, man, he'll take you to places you can never imagine. And those places are full of joy and purpose and meaning. And, man, you'll find true validation in that. I went from finding validation in the world that was temporary. When you find your validation in Christ, it ain't temporary. It's eternal. And, so pray this bless you. It's just me today. I know I rambled a lot. We're at an hour. But, man, the Lord is good, and he is able to do exceedingly and abundantly more than we could ever think, ask, or imagine. And so whatever your ask is, whatever your imagine is today for the Lord, he can do it. He can do it. You just got to trust him to do it. We got to believe. We got to believe. Just believe in the Lord for him to move in your life. Believe in the Lord that he would set you free. Believe in the Lord, whatever that addiction, whatever that stronghold is, whatever that area of your life is that you feel like you're just not growing, you're just stuck, man. Just set your eyes on Jesus. Look up. Look up. Peter stepped out of the boat and had his eyes on Jesus, and he didn't begin to sink until he looked at everything around him, the waves, the wind, and he took his eyes off Jesus and he began to sink. That's a very good spiritual principle there. If you just keep your eyes on the Lord, you will stand on top of the water. You will stand on top of the waves. Let me translate that. You will stand on top of your problems. You will stand on top of the stress. You will stand on top of the depression, the anxiety, the worry. That will be under your feet. And as you look towards Jesus, as your eyes stand on him, you will continue to walk over those problems, over those struggles, and you will ultimately draw closer and closer and closer, and you will get closer and closer to the Lord through that, and live your life a witness, be an impact to everyone around you so that you can lead people to the Lord. Because ultimately, and I'm going to end with this, everything on this earth that we have left and right is temporary. It's all going to pass away. And the only thing you can bring to heaven with you is the people around you. And so if everything on earth that we can bring to heaven is the people around us, let's live a life that brings people around us with us. Do you know what I mean? And so I just love you. Hey, guys, thank you for listening to this. I know it's been a long one. I pray it blessed you. The Lord is good. He is worthy to be praised. He is so good. And I could just sit for the next 30 minutes saying he is so good. Man, I'm just so thankful. Jesus is for you. He wants to help you. He is your friend. He is your father. And he's just so good. Thank you guys for listening. I pray this blessed you. And next week we should be back with me and Chandler. Love you guys. Love you guys for listening. Thank you guys. Love you, love you, love you. Praise the Lord. He is good. Amen.